Greetings, programs. Welcome to Final Thoughts video number 5. I can't count, apparently. This is my weekly recap show where I get to discuss my thoughts on the movies I did Disney intro plus video plus movie intros for this week. You know what I mean. I have 3 videos for you this week, so let's kind of just dive right into it. First up, we have The Moon Spinners. This was a film that recently dropped on Disney Plus from the year 1964. And I was kind of hesitant to go back and watch this one because I've had this forward momentum not wanting to go back and play catch up on Disney movies that I might have skipped because they're not available on Disney Plus. But I figured just for continuity's sake, I would go back and cover this one. It was released in 1964, and it was kind of fun to see what Disney was like 10 years prior. I feel like The Moon Spinners was produced at a time where Disney could do no wrong. This was 2 months prior to the release of Mary Poppins. Disney was firing on all cylinders at this point. It's about Haley Mills and her aunt. They are traveling on the island of Crete, which is all shot on location, so it looks beautiful. And they somehow get intertwined in this plot about stolen jewels. They meet this guy who is suspected of stealing the jewels, but hasn't stolen the jewels. And it's all intrigue. And I feel like a lot of this was Disney's attempt to capture the Hitchcockian vibes that were all throughout the films of the 1960s. Just the plot itself, all just reek of Hitchcock. And for the most part, it succeeds because it's all very well shot and the core plot is fairly interesting. I just found myself losing interest towards the middle half. Once they hit this big escape, and you'll know the scene when you get there. Once they escape this place and they end up on the run, the film gets less interesting. A lot of that is because the sense of danger just isn't there anymore. The film kind of phases itself out of being in danger. And the other part is Haley Mills, and I think she's great in the film. I just think her character is poorly underwritten, and there were moments where I just was hoping someone on screen would slap her to shut her up because she was so irritable at times and just wasn't gelling with the plot. She was annoying to create plot contrivances that didn't need to exist, and I hate when films do that. It was also kind of cool to see Poula Nadree in the film. She was a silent film star actress who kind of lost her fame once talkies became the rage, and this was like her first film in 20 years. And although there's a lot of hype for it, this is basically an extended cameo for her. She's in one scene. She's great in it. And this actually ended up being her final film. She stopped acting again after this film. And I thought it was cool. A cool little cameo, but, nothing to kind of go out of your way to watch because of her. I give it a 6 out of 10. There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of beautiful things to look at. I just think the film kind of fizzles out towards the end, and it just didn't feel all that satisfying. Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo. I did not want this to happen. I did not want to record this part of the Final Thoughts video because this is the end of Dean Jones's career with Disney when it comes to theatrically released films. And if you've been watching pretty much all the way back to Final Thoughts video number 1, Dean Jones has been my favorite Disney actor throughout this marathon. There's no comparison at all. Kurt Russell, Fred MacMurray, Tommy Kirk. I think Dean Jones is by far the best everyman actor Disney has ever casted in a film. And this kind of just breaks my heart to have to conclude his journey. I might just gush about Dean Jones the entire time and ignore the fact this movie is just fine. The film is fine. It's a decent Herbie. It's a decent love bug movie. There are just 2 big things that I have issues with this movie, and it drove me crazy the entire time. One was Don Knotts. I feel like this period in time with Disney, they were shoving Don Knotts in everything. I think I made a comment about it in a previous Final Thoughts video, that Don Knotts was just kind of shoved into these roles. And albeit so far, Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo is the best use of Don Knotts, it's still kind of unnecessary. I feel like he's there to be the comic relief. But in order to be the comic relief, you actually have to have something funny to say. And I feel like Don Knotts just says the most cringiest of dialogue. I teased a little bit of it in the intro video, and it's like nails on a chalkboard. The other big issue with Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo is the state of Herbie's sentient being. And what I mean by that is, in the first film, we established that Herbie is sentient and he has thoughts and emotions of his own, and he's the only car like that. Him and Jim have this connection with each other. They both need each other to exist or to have purpose in their lives. And I think that's a very sweet message, and they kind of bring the best out of each other. Herbie, what's the second one? Herbie rides again. They kind of establish that Herbie might have other sentient powers. Like he, at the end of the film, brings other cars to life to save the day. And, you know, it made no sense in the film, but it was kind of cute to watch. And Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo one-ups that even more. The film is basically all about Herbie seeing Lancia and falling in love and doing anything he can to get out of racing to be with this other car, who we established right off the bat is also sentient, who also has feelings towards Herbie, and Herbie has feelings towards this car. It's just strange because I thought we established that these cars aren't sentient, but only sentient with Herbie's around, and if all other cars are sentient, why don't they exist in this film? Or maybe that wasn't the case, and maybe she only became sentient because Herbie showed interest in her. And either way, the film is all about them trying to run off and not do the race so they can go have implied car sex. Either way, my point is, these films have never been clear on what the rules are when it comes to Herbie and his state of mind. Not like it even really matters or anyone's really caring about that. It just kind of frustrates me, who've now sit through 3 of these, and the rules change every single time. I give the film a 6.5 out of 10. It's fun. It's a lot more fun than the last Herbie film. And once again, Dean Jones just showcases why he was the best Disney everyman. And I think here, even with lesser material, still elevates the film to a place where it's still entertaining to watch. I'm definitely going to miss talking about him, and I feel like he has impacted me as a Disney fan in ways that I can't even express. I think he has been such a joy to watch on the screen for, at this point, over a decade of films, and it's a bummer that I don't get to talk about him anymore. The surprising thing is I get to go explore other parts of his catalog, which segues me into Beethoven, which is a film from my childhood. It came out in 1992. I owned it on VHS, and it was just a staple. I watched it all the time, all throughout my life, and what I didn't find out until this marathon, and it blew me away, and it still blows me away, that the evil veterinarian in that film, Dr. Varnick, is Dean Jones. And that just, my mind is blown. The fact that Dean Jones plays a character so against type, you know, he's the leading man in all these Disney films, without much character flaws at all, and he's playing this veterinarian who is very much just a piece of shit. What also blew my mind even more was, if you look at Charles Grodin's character in Beethoven, he plays the father. Charles Grodin's character would have been the character Dean Jones would have played if Beethoven was made in the 1970s. That archetype carried on into other actors. Charles Grodin, Steve Martin played a bunch of those type of characters in the 90s, and it was just a lot of fun. It was very cool to watch. Lastly, we have The Rescuers. I am ashamed of myself that I've never seen this film, and shame on me. This film is beautiful. It's fantastic. It's strange to think that this is the final film that Walt's 9 Old Men, the animators, worked on. When you look at it, especially the animation style of this film, there's way more of Don Bluth in the animation than there are of Walt's 9 Old Men. And for those of you who don't know who Don Bluth is, I'm not going to spoil too much because I'm going to reveal later down the line his history when it comes to Disney. If you watched any animated movie that wasn't Disney related in the late 80s or the early 90s, more than likely Don Bluth had a hand in those films. He started with Disney, and his animation style is very specific, and it echoes that in The Rescuers. There was a quote from Ollie Johnson and Frank Thomas that they said this was their return to an animated film with a heart, and I couldn't agree any more with that. I was very saddened by most of this film. This film was very sad, but it made me feel something that I hadn't felt in an animated Disney film in a long time. If you look back at, like, say, Robin Hood. Robin Hood's fun. I don't really have any emotional connection to those characters. Same with The Sword and the Stone. I thought The Sword and the Stone was mildly unwatchable because I had no way to connect. As much as I love Winnie the Pooh, there's still like a surface level connection to these characters. You aren't fully invested in the story as much as you are with The Rescuers. I think The Rescuers does a brilliant job of really fleshing out who Bianca is, who Bernard is, and who this little girl is they're trying to rescue, and why these two people, Mr. Snoops and Madame Medusa, are incredibly bad and evil And I think the setting, which is on the abandoned riverboat, also really helps as well. It's just gorgeously animated. The voice cast is spot on. I don't have any bad things to say about this film at all. And I'm just ashamed that it took me so long to watch this. I give it a 10 out of 10. I can't recommend this movie enough for anyone who has not seen The Rescuers. It is beautiful, fun, exciting. I actually kind of want to go back and watch it again. And what makes it even more exciting is that I've actually never seen The Rescuers Down Under, the sequel. So when we eventually get to that in 1990, I'm going to be even more excited to see these characters come back into my life. And that's just so much fun. So that is it. Those are my thoughts on the films that you saw intro videos for this week or didn't see intro films on this week. If you haven't, watch those videos. What are your thoughts on these movies? Let me know down below in the comments. If you like this video, please definitely give it a like as well. Also, please consider subscribing to the channel. Until next time, next week, thanks so much. End of line.